Welcome to the joint venture of the Awakening Podcast versus Mindwars. I'm Roy Collin of the Awakening Podcast, and I'm here with Chris Ryan of Mindwars. You'll find his website on mindwars.uk, and I'm at awakeningpodcast.org. We're both on BitChute and YouTube, so be sure to share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe. How's it going, Chris?
Good. And yourself, Roy? How are you since last week?
I'm still alive, still above ground, all good.
That's the main thing. So what are we going to get into this week for a few viewers?
Well, I know we're both living abroad, so I know that flying is something that is of interest to both of us. So we've got a bit of a update on the flying.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of sort of the breaking news last couple of days. A lot of people are talking about it, and it's two kind of conflicting arguments from two different airlines. There's a couple of them, but two in particular that stand out is obviously Qantas, the CEO of it, Alan Joyce in Australia. He's been coming out in the last couple of days and all over 9 News in Australia, and saying that, he's been interviewed on it and he's basically been asked a number of questions on it, saying, what are we going to do for the new year to obviously get the travel industry back up in the air again and all this and people back to work? He says, they asked the big question, of course, are you going to make your passengers that board your airline, are you going to make them get a vaccine? And he pretty much said, yeah. He says, we're looking into changing the terms and conditions as it is. So he says that'll be possible. He said the girl actually that was interviewing him actually said, would even something like a bracelet, like an ankle bracelet, would that be possible? He never denied it. So this is all kind of part of it as well as to, this vaccination or vaccination passport as well, to basically get to fly on a plane to different parts of the world. It's absolute insanity. So, I mean, people near seriously need to boycott that kind of an airline that's going on like that, because, I mean, they have no right or integrity to basically say what goes in or what goes out of your body, simply to go where you want to around the world. So it's absolute madness that way.
What about, say, Europe or the US looking at more innovative ways rather than necessarily waiting for a vaccine? So ankle bracelets, for example, rapid testing, testing the sewerage on the planes, that sort of thing. Should we be looking at that?
And we are. So what's great about the repatriation flights that we're now doing from Europe in particular, that are flying into Darwin, is that we are doing a test before people get on the aircraft with a PCR test. We are doing testing then in Darwin, which hopefully will allow us to determine whether 14 days quarantine is too long. Can it be done shorter than that? We're actually testing the wastewater on the aircraft as well to check if somebody on the aircraft had COVID-19, and that's proving to have some very promising results. So there's a lot of activity taking place. So if we don't get bubbles, we don't get a vaccine, absolutely testing is the way to try and to reduce the amount of time that's needed in quarantine.
Alan, when there is a vaccine, are you going to require all of your passengers to be vaccinated before they get on a plane?
Yeah, we are looking at changing our terms and conditions to say for international travellers that we will ask people to have a vaccination before they can get on the aircraft. Whether you need that domestically, we'll have to see what happens with COVID-19 in the market, but certainly for international visitors coming out and people leaving the country, we think that's a necessity.
Is that something that you think will happen around the world, that we literally won't be able to travel anywhere unless we provide proof of vaccination?
I think that's going to be a common theme. I'm talking to my colleagues in other airlines around the globe, and I think it's going to be a common theme across the board. And what we're looking at is how you can have a vaccination a passport, an electronic version of it that certifies what the vaccine is it acceptable to the country you're travelling to. So there's a lot of logistics, a lot of technology that'll be needed to put in place to make this happen. But the airlines and the governments are working on this as we speak.
And then on the other hand, you have actually Ryanair, biggest in actually Europe for travel that way. So they've come out and they've got asked the same question, and they said that no, they wouldn't be actually rolling out basically what Alan Joyce, the CEO of Qantas, said. And in a little article is actually what they said was Ryanair have said that it won't partake in the idea, stressing that requiring passengers to get a COVID vaccine is not really relevant, he says, for short hand flights to Europe. The chief executive was saying this, Mr. Wilson, said that such requirements work for places like Australia. So this guy apparently knows that, never been trialed or tested before, but he says, yeah, it'll work for Australia, okay. And this is for a virus that no government or no scientists have ever approved to exist. I'll continue reading. Where pretty much the only way into the country is by plane. With Qantas, they're a long-haul operator, so vaccinations in that context are really for long haul, he said. I mean, Madness, absolute insanity, of
I
course.
mean,
So
what gives them the right to actually even dictate something like that? It's a shame, fellow Irishman, that you're embarrassed
of
about,
course,
you know.
yeah, it is. It's shameful, but I know you've a positive on something like that as well. As far as England goes, there's already a pushback. I mean, I know, and the funny end of things that he was actually Alan Joyce, the CEO, was at a news conference in the in Perth only in the last 24 hours or so in a hotel there, and a guy came up on stage and actually smashed a pie into his face and just walked off.
Now, it's been 6 months since I've been here to announce the... Get the heck.
The business breakfast was well advanced when the grim-faced attacker dished up what he thought was a just dessert. Qantas CEO Alan Joyce and 600 guests stunned as the cream pie was plastered with clinical precision.
I might take a break for a second, guys.
So
That was a pleasure to watch, actually.
It was.
Yeah, himself and Bill Gates getting pies. You know, I'd rather they got injections, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's better than nothing. Like,
it's just to show already people don't want this kind of thing. Nobody wants this. The amount of thumbs down online as well. Looking at all these videos, it's like thousands of thumbs down. You know, the people have spoken. Nobody wants this. Like, I'm all about, you know, freedom of choice. If people want to get it, fine. But it's under no circumstances any airline or any government body, any controller basically say what you will take or won't take. It's like, it's a form of blackmail. It's like, well, we'll let you on this. You don't have to, but we'll let you on it if you get vaccinated, if you do as we please. I'm like, no, good luck and thanks.
exactly. And I mean, it's not just about a vaccine. It's like they won't talk to the scientist, you know, even if you look at the ingredients in them. So every single thing connected with it is scary. So we know that there's a hidden agenda. So why should we comply? But in relation to the one that you mentioned, I mean, I can read that out because I know that's like we put this up on the videos as well. But just for those that listen on the audio, it was trade wins travel. And on the 23rd of November, following the statement from Qantas that they would not allow passengers on their flights without a vaccination for COVID-19, we decided as a company that we would no longer offer Qantas flights to our customers. Whilst we are just a relatively small independent tour operator based in the UK and Qantas are a large international airline, we feel that bodily autonomy with regard to medical intervention is a personal choice and not something to be forced onto people by business. We are not anti-vaccination, but we are pro-choice. There is a huge difference between coercion and making a free choice. Qantas fly from the UK to the Far East and to Australia. They code share flights with Emirates, and this will also impact the business of Emirates Airlines, who have not taken the same stance as Qantas. We wonder if this has been discussed with Emirates prior to the announcement by Qantas. Emirates are without doubt a larger airline than Qantas and are certainly more frequently used by British tourists to the Far East. We hope for some clarification from our partners at Emirates. We do not want to see the spread of COVID-19 anywhere in the world, but never before in the history of aviation has there been a requirement to have an injection before boarding a plane. If Australia as a nation makes the decision to not allow entry to people without a vaccination, then that is within their rights, and people can make an informed choice as to whether they wish to visit the country, but it is not up to the airline to enforce this upon their customers. And you take your hat off to them for doing that because, you know, they're putting their name out. They could actually get, you know, it could affect them. But to be honest with you, I reckon their trade will go up for that because anybody that's against what Qantas has done, which is disgusting, they should support people like that.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, hopefully that's the start. All you need generally is one person to come out and go against the grain or the mainstream narrative, and all of a sudden they might get a certain amount of demonization first at times. I'm sure people will always get that side of things as well, but it should take off to say, look, because I mean, this company are obviously going to lose a certain amount of business when they know that, but they're willing to do that because they can see what's actually at stake here. Freedom is the biggest thing at stake here, above any money or anything else is at stake massively on a global scale. We need the people to basically turn up against this and fight back against it. And now that one of these industries are pushing back, the travel industry is a great, fantastic way forward as well. So definitely a plus to take out of this week, even though the other things are contradicting. I mean, if you think about the whole context for a second, Ryanair saying, you know, that it's kind of, you know, we won't go for it. Well, for now anyway, we won't go for it within Europe because we're only kind of short haul flights. And you know, be saying it's okay. Like I can totally understand the concept of Australia if they go on for a Qantas because they're a long haul flight. Like think about this for a second. He's basically saying this alleged virus that still hasn't been, as I go back to, has never been proven to exist by in any documentation by a government or a scientist. They're arguing over something that doesn't exist, and they're kind of basically saying that they even know the virus themselves is what they're saying, because the virus, you know, it's all right in the short haul, but give the virus any bit of long haul at all and it reacts badly, you're going to get snapped up straight away. So it doesn't like this long haul virus at all, this virus that goes out and attacks people randomly. But it's, you know, same with tier systems we have in England, different places around the world. It goes for certain tier systems, and at Christmas it'll allow you to have a little bubble at Christmas for so many days. You can visit families, you can have extra people in your household, but then the virus will go away again, or it'll come back actually twice as bad in New Year, they said, for a couple of days you can spend with your family at Christmas. So this is the lunacy, brain dead conversations that's actually going on around the world, and unfortunately people are still tuned into this kind of thing to say, oh yeah, like, you know, it is a thing, like, I mean, and these are so-called superior people that people are supposed to look up to. And it's just, as we say in every podcast, thankfully there's more and more waking up. It's definitely a plus sign, and there's more pluses coming out with things all the time, but we need to up the ante as well of that moving forward.
I suppose since we're on that, because we try to bring some positivity, we know that the information at times, you know, can be a bit painful, but one of my connections there in Canada, Vince Del Monte, had a live video, and what it was is there was a restaurant there. He'd said he's sick of what's going on. He said people are losing their livelihoods. He's opening up his restaurants. He doesn't care, and he basically asked people to come out. There was maybe 1,000 people. There was a lot of people around there, but of course the police arrived on their horses waiting for him. But there was people there with their speakers telling what I was surprised, actually. They were saying about the DNA is going to be kept. So like people are really awake, and people were cheering and clapping, and then they were telling the police to stand down. What they were basically suggesting is if every single person done that, because they were saying how few police were there compared to the amount of people. So if every single gym, every single restaurant opened up, they don't have the people to actually, you know, stop them from entering. So we need life to actually return. Like the one thing that could be done straight away is stop the salaries of the politicians, and yeah, let's see how they actually react. Because like it's all okay if you're able to put you know, have a roof over your head and put food on your table. What about the people that have lost their jobs and, you know, they're not getting anything to actually survive? So let's take the money off the politicians, stop paying them, and let's see how fast they actually get the lockdown, you know.
Exactly. And like we've been saying for months and months, it's, you know, there's only a few of them, but there's actually billions of us, all controlled and orchestrated by fear. From they're selling this illusion of it's for your health and for your safety and for the greater good, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Like they're still harping on now here in England, of course, because, you know, protect the NHS, which is from people listening abroad, it's the National Health Service here in England. You know, protect the NHS, like the NHS hospitals, oh, we're going to overwhelm it. That's all the slogans and articles are. But we need to protect the hospitals so they don't get overwhelmed. Nothing about like our own immunity here, how strong our own immunity system is here as well. And none of these hospitals are overwhelmed. They're well below what they should be, and they're. If you go back in the last 5 years alone, and all these, you know, doctors are coming out in England as well. So Dr. Eden is a very good guy in this as well. And he's come out and said, like, there is no, for this time of year, it's perfectly normal, like any other year, be it excess deaths, fatalities, mortalities, all that, he says together, he says, there is nothing abnormal about it. But yes, they're ramping up everything at the moment to push, because it was, you know, it was all about to flatten the curve. What it was about was getting the vaccine in and keeping people under house arrest as long as possible to wait up for this, you know, so-called magic wand of a vaccine that I don't know anybody in their right mind that would actually want to take a vaccine. When you think of the scenario of it, like, you know, 90% are saying possibly 95% effective from Pfizer and AstraZeneca, when your own immune system is something like 99.8 or 99.9% a survival rate, even if you do believe the mainstream narrative that, you know, this alleged virus is such a deadly killer out in the public domain. So I think you would go for your own immune system above any toxic injection that you've gone out. And these injections normally take about 10 years from inception to market to see how the long-term side effects, and they're actually taking immunity in this. They've already been, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, all these companies have been already granted before anything has even fully tested and gone to market. They've been given complete immunity from any liability, any illness, or any cause of death. They've wiped their hands of it. So, I mean, if people think of it in that sense, in one sense, like analogy, say, if I went in to buy a car in the morning, I know a car and your body are completely two different things, but just give a simple analogy. If I went in to buy a car in the morning, brand new one, I goes in, pay 20 grand for it. The guy goes, yeah, there's your keys of the car, off out the gate now with you. I'm not giving any liability. I'm not standing over what I just sold you. You know, think about that for a second. Like, would you kind of go, oh yeah, sure, no worries. I'll give you that. There's the 20 grand. That's grand. You're not going to stand over a new car. Because you've so much, you know, you can't even believe in your own system. That's what the companies are saying. They can't even believe in their own system here, because it's just like, we know there's deadly side effects to come and unknown side effects that will lead to massive cause of illness and death as well, unfortunately, for some down the line. It's inevitable. Like, so, I mean, that in a sense is just madness to think, like, you know, that if people even knew a lot of that as well, there is no liability for these companies and that. So they can't stand over because they know there'll be massive side effects. So, but yet they're willing to rush it to market, get under emergency restriction laws to basically say, yeah, push, get it out. Because like we spoke in previous podcasts, there's a return on investment. There's billions and billions here at stake for these people and investors to make. Absolutely zero got to do with their health.
It's all about the money. Yeah,
Exactly.
It's all about the money. And, you know, you're on about the cars. I mean, there's actually cases where a lot of times you'd hear of a call back on cars. What they actually do is they look at how much it's going to cost them. So even if they know there's a defect, but it's a tiny percentage, and they know people will die from it, but it's less cost than the recall, they don't have a recall. I mean, they've been caught for that. There's a few of the bigger car manufacturers have been caught doing that. Regarding the vaccines, I mean, I know people that have actually, their children have died from vaccines. Like, they're saying 90%. We know that's not true. Like, regarding the hospitals being, you know, bombarded, that will happen if everybody gets the injections, because they're all going to have side effects. They're already they're advertising for AI to actually see what the different side effects will be, and then try to improve it. So, like, 100% I will not be getting a vaccine. And if you are thinking about it, all I would suggest is actually go away. We've discussed it previously, but we've got some information on our websites as well about the ingredients in it. So, you know, you would never in a million years put that toxins into you. And I think that they're going to be rolling them out in, is it Derby or somewhere that
so I'm just reading this actually today as well. Like, we spoke a couple of weeks back, or Liverpool in England was one of the so-called first trial grounds of mass testing. Okay, so now roll on a couple of weeks, and now what they're doing here in Derby in England is in Derby Arena, actually, they're basically this is going to be the place for the first trial ground for mass vaccination. So within a few weeks, we're going from the testing to mass vaccination. Nothing has been, you know, granted in the sense that vaccinations are going to work and it's the magic formula, and nothing is even out in the market. All these trials and so on and so on. But there's actually an interesting little article from one of the Derby newspapers here in England, and it basically goes like this. It says, approval for the NHS, which is the National Health Service here in England, to take over Derby Arena and run it as a mass vaccination centre for COVID-19 will be urgently given by Derby City Council at a specifically convenient meeting tomorrow. It is understood that the council will receive in excess of 250,000 sterling from the government to allow the area to be used, although the full licence fee has still to be agreed. It will come into use as a vaccination centre when the approval of one or more of the various vaccines in production is given out. But an NHS spokesman could not say if it would be early, as in the next 2 weeks, as has been suggested by the nation itself. But the speed of the NHS request the use of the arena, revealed by Derbyshire Live last week, means that council leader Chris Poulter will have to give permission urgently for the arena to be licensed and used, as the next cabinet meeting at which it could be done is not until Wednesday, December the 9th. The NHS occupation of the arena will be time limited, and on a non-exclusive basis. Under the licence, the council will return the right to use the arena, including the gym and other first floor operations, and also it will be able to accommodate the local election count in May. So they're already known, once they get in, it's going to be here for months and months and months. Even talking about the elections in May, that, you know, we'll still be able to use the elections in May while this is going on in the background. It's incredible. It's a form of mass genocide that's just being carried out right across the world, and people seriously just need to wake up to what's going on. And obviously this is just the start of it. Like we said previously, it's all about the vaccination. It was never about keeping you healthy and safe and all that kind of thing. And the vaccination is only one area that they want to go into. I mean, there's loads of other areas we previously spoke about as well, but that's just one place here in Derby is the first so-called ground for the vaccination centres to set up, like so-called concentration camps for these people just to come in, line up and get tested and away again. Like it's
and
incredible.
I've also seen as well that our beautiful Muppet Irish government, who are the most incompetent bunch of imbeciles I've ever come across,
they've sorted
they're
out
after ordering 10 million, so that means everybody gets 2 vaccines.
It's just under 5 million or so of a population, so they've allocated already, and they say they're going to go for more, but 10 million plus. So they're already, like, they've no idea of anything. They've already put in the price and the order and the whole lot for it, and it's like, right, we don't know how safe or anything is going to be. We've even skipped the normal trial studies or the trial areas of where you go for the animal first and all the procedures. They've never ever done a coronavirus in the past, and they've tried many times for years and years and years. And now within a couple of months, all of a sudden it's going to be rushed out, and lots of governments, unfortunately our own stupid government in Ireland, are going to sort us out for decades, are basically now sending us out once again. Mass genocide on our nation again is going to be a call out for what it is, because that's what it feels like, and that's what it is on people. Is you're basically saying there's going to be at least 2 vaccines for every man, woman and child, and nobody's kind of getting a say. We've already put in the order and you're just going to line up and take it. So
and not only should they do the pots and pans of Denmark, which seems to work, but I think they need to actually be hitting the politicians with the pots and pans, because there's obviously nothing in between the brains. Like, you know, it's like zombie politicians at this stage. Like, I really can't understand it. But every single thing they have done, because, you know, we both keep an eye on what goes on in Ireland. And to be honest with you, I think every country that we're looking at, Poland is no better with the politicians, the UK and Ireland, but they have voted in so many different things for vulture funds to, you know, basically give the vulture funds more powers to evict people. Yeah, during a pandemic, that makes sense. And then with the nuns, how many children were actually murdered? Over 800, and they voted in
up in June.
Voted close that for 30 years. Hopefully that's going to get overturned, because there was such uproar. So now the people need to wake up and uproar again and just totally refuse to actually get this, because it does not work.
It's madness. Like, and even that, with that Tuam situation where all the, you know, the bodies and children and all the stuff was found up there a couple of years back, I think it was 2014 or sometime around then. You know, the 2 people that are looking over it, that said that we're doing inquiries and looking into it, but we found nothing yet, is the church and the state collaborating together, looking over. It's like basically having the murderer look over your own crime scene. It's give me a break.
Of the 2 people in the world to look after anything, it's the 2 that you wouldn't trust. Like,
yeah, I know. It's madness again. But the funny part this week, I've seen a Twitter in the last couple of days have actually come out, and they've said that any misinformation that's on their website that has been already deemed as misinformation, if you apparently, I'm not on Twitter myself, but if you apparently go in and look at and like it, you're already given a warning. So how dare you, like something that's already deemed misinformation by who, of course, like these beloved fact checkers in the background, Silicon Valley, that we know are not for our rights or freedoms or freedom of speech. They're just basically there to basically box us in and to say what you can and what you can't say. Like, they seriously have a cheek to what they're actually doing. But people say, what can we do? Well, so just get off their platform, I suppose. Just don't give them any response. Just go away. If that's the kind of boxing in a society and people's freedoms or rights and what they actually want to say and stuff, because what's deemed as misinformation to one person could be very, very valid information to another person. So that in itself is madness. And they said it was only the last couple of days was all justified on the back of the the fiasco of the election in the States and and COVID-19, because there's so much misinformation going around the place. So that we need to take the extra step in, and we think it's a good thing. And they didn't say censorship, but that's what they're doing. It's basically another step forward in censorship. So yeah.
Well, I mean, we've realized how bad they are. They were even, I mean, Donald Trump is still the president. They're even censoring him. They're stopping his tweets. And, it's like, but I do know that Parler is a competitor to him. So people are now jumping to Parler. So, I mean, if they lose their share, that's the only way, And I mean, I've used Twitter for years, but I never found it great. Not Poland anyway. I know it's bigger in in the US. It's okay in the UK, but it's mainly the USA. It's very big. But anyone that's on it, I'd say jump the parlor, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can't tolerate that. Because even, like, say, for example, you tweeted something and I like it. I mean, how can I get a black mark for that? Like,
Exactly. I mean,
it doesn't make sense at all. But has anything made sense in the last 8 months or whatever? And
Yeah.
you know, like this, like even I'm looking at stuff now. Anything that Donald Trump is putting up, it's just there. You see the post underneath it saying Facebook, Biden is the president-elect. Like, I mean, just looking at that, it's like, why are they even getting involved? It's not, you know, that just shows there's a hidden agenda there. And if you kind of, you know, accept that, and we need to get away from Facebook as well, like, you know. So yeah, I suppose we'll be wrapping up there, Chris. I mean, we always like to try to finish on something positive. I had a very good interview with the last podcast that I put up with one of our mutual friend, Zaid, judges of the MCC podcast.
Yeah.
And just from the stuff that I had seen on Australia, I thought all of Australia was on lockdown and they were all getting beat up and everything. And the area he's in New South Wales, and he said people are going, he said they look strange if you have a mask on. And they've got a very good leader there, and she's also manages Sydney. And you know, he said it was Victoria was where it was bad, and that's even easing up. And I believe you've got a friend as well. Is it Perth?
Yeah, I got family in different parts as well. I mean, I know Perth, for example, is like they feel they're going around their business as if nothing is kind of going on. Just getting on as normal. There's no harsh lockdowns. There's no boots in the ground outside their door or anything like that. So they're kind of getting on pretty normal. They feel they've escaped the whole lot of it. Obviously, we know, as you mentioned, Victoria was getting it for weeks and weeks and weeks, getting a very harsh lockdown. They're not quite out of lockdown yet, but it's just eased off a certain amount. And now it's gone down into southern Australia in the last couple of days or a week or so. They're getting it real harsh. Seen a video on lately, and the streets were absolutely derelict, empty in southern Australia at the minute. But the likes of Brisbane, you know, Queensland, that area, and in New South Wales and Sydney and those areas, they seem to be not touched at the moment. They seem to be all right, but I'm sure in time all of a sudden they'll have a breach or something and come out there now, and they'll be bit by bit, they'll go across state by state into them. But for now, it's not bad in Australia, but you have got some muppets still in power in Australia. So come on, Aussies, rise up and fight back. Your freedom is massively at stake here.
Definitely. And like if you look at just say Sweden, where they never had this lockdown, so restaurants are open, bars are open and everything. Do we see people dropping dead on the floor? Do we see a massive spike with all the amount of people dead in Sweden? No. Yeah. But you go to the UK and at a minute past 10 o'clock, they have to close the bars. So it means like the COVID is waiting there with a stopwatch and he's ready to pounce. Yeah. In Ireland, all the bars are closed. And it's like, not only are the publicans that are actually, you know, their businesses going down, but all of the people that have been employed in them industries, the same in the hotel industries. For what? For the dopes politicians that are just, you know, taking the decisions from those above and complying. If you do not stand up, if you just think, I'll just do nothing. If there's a protest with pots and pans, bring out your pots and pans. Support the people that are trying to bring you the information. You know, give a thumbs up, share with your friends. And it makes a difference, because if you thought that being compliant and being a good boy and doing as they were told made a difference, can you see a difference in the different countries besides people losing their jobs, losing their income, being depressed? No. So it's actually done 10 times more harm than anything. So people need to stick together and stand up. And next week we'll bring you way more updates and as much positivity as we can. But we also have to bring you the doom and gloom, unfortunately, because, you know, reality is there, but power, you know, knowledge is power, definitely helps.
Exactly. And the only thing lockdowns ever do is basically destroy people's businesses and livelihoods and basically make the poor even poorer. That's all lockdowns ever do.
Exactly. Yeah. Listen, Chris, thanks again. As always, look forward to talking to you again next week.
Same as right. We'll be talking to you next week as well.
So you'll find all of Chris' episodes on mindwars.uk. He's also on Facebook, BitChute and YouTube. As well as myself, I'm on awakeningpodcast.org. Make sure that you share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and until next week, take care.
See you then.